The throne hall of the Zalari Empire still buzzed with shock. The queen's words, "Are you single, human?" echoed in the air like a thunderclap. Nobles whispered to each other, their faces twisted in disbelief. Generals exchanged angry looks, and a few even growled in low tones as if they had been insulted. Commander Elias Ward stood at the center of it all. His heart raced, but he forced his face to stay calm. He had trained for diplomacy, for speeches, for difficult negotiations, but never for this. The queen leaned back on her throne, her violet eyes locked on him. Her expression was unreadable, somewhere between amusement and curiosity. One of the nobles, a tall Zalari male with scars across his jaw, stepped forward. His armor gleamed red under the hall's lights. He bowed slightly to the queen, but then turned sharply toward Elias. "Your Majesty," the noble said loudly. "This creature dares to toy with your words. He insults the Empire by treating your question lightly. Humans are not worthy of standing here. They are soft, fragile, and without honor." The court murmured in agreement. Elias felt the tension rising like heat around him. He knew this was the real test, not the queen's question, but how he would answer her people's hostility. Elias took a slow breath. He met the noble's eyes and spoke clearly. "If humans are fragile," Elias said, "then it must surprise you that we are standing here at all. Our world was never kind to us. We survived storms, beasts, and wars long before we reached the stars. Fragile things break, but humanity endures." The words hung in the air. Some nobles frowned. Others looked at him with new curiosity. The queen tilted her head slightly, her lips curving in the faintest smile. The scarred noble sneered. "Words, always words. If humans endure, then show us. Or are your people only strong with their tongues?" Another noble joined him, her voice sharp. "Let the human prove his worth. Let him face a challenge of honor, as all warriors must." The hall erupted with agreement. The queen lifted her hand for silence, but her eyes still studied Elias, waiting to see how he would react. Elias's mind raced. He was no gladiator. He wasn't built to fight alien warriors in an arena. But he also knew refusing would brand humanity as cowards. Slowly, Elias bowed his head toward the queen. "If it is your wish, your Majesty, I will face whatever challenge your court demands. But understand this, I am not here as a warrior. I am here as a voice of my people. If I must prove my worth, I will do so with the strength humans truly have, our minds, our will, and our stubbornness." The queen's eyes gleamed with interest. The scarred noble growled. "Then let it be a duel, not of blades, but of endurance. We will see how long this fragile creature lasts." The court cheered. The queen raised her hand again, silencing them, then nodded. "So be it. Let the challenge begin." The challenge Elias was led to a vast chamber deep within the palace. The walls glowed faintly, lined with alien symbols. In the center stood a circular platform surrounded by watchers. The challenge was explained. Both Elias and the noble would hold a weighted staff above their heads. Whoever lasted longer would win. The weight was not extreme for a Zalari, but for a human it would be brutal. The scarred noble smirked as he lifted his staff with ease. Elias gripped his own, the metal cold in his hands. The weight pressed down immediately, straining his arms. The signal was given. Minutes crawled by. The noble stood tall, barely moving. Elias's arms trembled, pain shooting through his shoulders. He gritted his teeth, focusing on his breathing. "Don't give them what they want," he thought. "Don't let them see you break." Sweat ran down his face. His arms screamed in protest. The nobles laughed, whispering that he would drop the staff any second. But Elias refused. He thought of Earth, of the people counting on him, of humanity's long history of suffering and survival. The noble began to shift uncomfortably. His arms twitched. Elias noticed and held on tighter, his jaw set. 5 minutes, 10, 15. The room grew quiet. The laughter faded. At 20 minutes, the noble's arms dropped. The staff clattered to the ground. A gasp ran through the chamber. Elias's arms shook violently, but he forced himself to hold the staff a moment longer before lowering it with control. His whole body ached, but he straightened his back and stood tall. The nobles stared. Some looked angry. Others whispered in shock. The queen's voice rang out, calm but powerful. "The human endures." Her words echoed like a hammer striking stone. Whispers and rumors. After the challenge, Elias was escorted back to the throne hall. The atmosphere had changed. The nobles no longer looked at him with simple disdain. Now there was curiosity, even respect, but also anger from those who felt threatened. He noticed the way they whispered behind their hands, stealing glances at him and then at their queen. Rumors were already spreading. The queen leaned forward again, her eyes never leaving him. "You are not what they expected," she said softly but loud enough for the hall to hear. Elias bowed slightly. "I don't think humanity has ever been what anyone expected," the hall murmured again, but the queen raised her hand. "Enough. The human has proven his spirit. He will remain under my protection while he stays in this court. Any who challenge him, challenge me." The declaration struck the court like lightning. Gasps filled the room. To openly place a foreign envoy under her protection was rare. To defend him so strongly was almost unheard of. The scarred noble's jaw tightened, but he bowed reluctantly. Others followed, though their eyes burned with resentment. Elias felt the shift in the room. He was no longer just a guest. He had become a symbol, for better or worse. As the court session ended and the nobles departed, the queen remained seated, her gaze following him. When they were finally alone, she spoke again, her tone quieter, more personal. "You surprise me, human," she said. "Most beings in this galaxy would have broken under the weight. Yet you stood. You endured. Why?" Elias met her eyes. "Because that's what humans do, Your Majesty. We endure, no matter the pain. No matter how hopeless it looks, we hold on." For the first time, her lips curved into a true smile. It was small, but it carried a strange warmth that caught him off guard. "Interesting," she whispered. "Very interesting." That night, as Elias was shown to his quarters within the palace, he replayed the day's events in his mind. He had come here for diplomacy, for trade, for peace. But already things were moving in ways he could never have predicted. The queen's question. The noble's hostility. The challenge. Her open defense of him. The days after the challenge were strange for Commander Elias Ward. In the halls of the Zelari Palace, he felt the stares of nobles and soldiers wherever he went. Some looked at him with new respect, others with burning resentment, and everywhere he walked, whispers followed him like shadows. The queen had made her position clear. The human was under her protection. That had silenced open insults, but it had not killed suspicion. Elias tried to keep his focus on diplomacy. Each day he sat with advisors, speaking of trade routes, resource exchanges, and cultural agreements. But it was clear the court cared less about peace and more about the queen's strange interest in him. One evening, as he studied a map of the Zelari star systems, a message reached the court. A rival empire, the Crover Dominion, had begun spreading propaganda across the galaxy. The news arrived through a projection in the throne hall. A Crovar broadcast filled the air, showing images of Elias standing beside the queen. The narrator's voice, harsh and mocking, thundered across the chamber. "The great queen of the Zelari has lowered herself to look upon a weakling species. See how she entertains a fragile creature from a backwater world. See how she forgets the honor of her ancestors." The court erupted in anger. Some shouted against the Crovar, but others turned their eyes toward Elias with doubt. The queen's expression turned cold as steel. "Lies," she said firmly. "The Crovar spread poison because they fear us. They fear what this alliance could mean." But the seed had been planted. Rumors spread faster than truth. A new role for Elias instead of being pushed aside. Elias found himself drawn deeper into the queen's council. She summoned him to private strategy meetings where maps of enemy fleets glowed in the air. Her generals stood in a circle, armored and stern, speaking of tactics, invasions, and honor. Elias listened quietly at first. He was no great warrior, but he was observant. One day, as they argued over whether to strike first or wait, Elias spoke. "If you attack directly, you will fall into their trap. The Crovar know you value strength above all. They want you to meet them head-on, where they are strongest. Instead, strike where they are weak, cut their supply lines, take their fuel depots, and their fleets will starve." The room fell silent. The generals frowned. Some insulted that a human dared to speak. But the queen leaned forward, her violet eyes thoughtful. "You speak as one who knows war," she said. "I know survival," Elias answered. "On Earth, wars were not won by strength alone. They were won by those who adapted." The queen nodded slowly. "Adaptation, yes. There is wisdom in this." The generals exchanged uneasy looks. They could not openly defy the queen. But Elias could feel their anger boiling, whispers of betrayal. That night, while walking through the palace gardens, Elias overheard voices in the shadows. He paused behind a pillar, listening. "The queen grows weak," one voice hissed. "She lets the human poison her mind with soft words." "She has lost the respect of the council," another said. "If she continues, we will all fall. The Crovar will crush us." "And so," the first voice whispered, "we must do what is necessary. The queen will be replaced, quietly. The empire must survive." Elias's heart pounded. He stepped back silently, careful not to reveal himself. The voices faded into the night. He returned to his quarters, his thoughts heavy. He had discovered the truth. There was a conspiracy among the queen's own generals. They planned to overthrow her. But what could he do? If he told her without proof, she might dismiss him as paranoid. If he stayed silent, she could be killed. He paced the room, torn between duty to his people and loyalty to her. This was not his fight. He was supposed to be a diplomat, nothing more. Yet the image of her violet eyes came to him steady and strong. She had defended him when no one else would. Could he really abandon her now? A choice in the dark. The next day, the queen called him again. They stood alone in the war chamber. The galaxy stretched before them in glowing lines of light. "You are quiet, human," she said, studying him. "You carry weight in your eyes." Elias hesitated. He wanted to tell her everything. But the walls of the palace had ears, and he feared speaking openly. Instead, he chose his words carefully. "Your Majesty," he said, "there are those in this court who would rather see you fall than see you stand beside me." The queen's gaze hardened. "Names? I cannot give them," Elias said. "Not yet. But I warn you, be careful whom you trust." She stepped closer, her armor gleaming in the light. Her eyes searched his face. "And you? Can I trust you, human?" Elias met her gaze. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. "Yes, even if it costs me everything." For a long moment, the queen said nothing. Then slowly she nodded. "Good, because shadows gather around us. The Crovar come with fire. My own people whisper betrayal. And yet," her lips curved faintly, "I find myself looking to you." Elias felt the weight of her words. In that moment, he made his choice. He would not abandon her. Even if the galaxy turned against him, he would stand by her side. The fire spreads. The next weeks grew darker. The Crovar massed fleets along the borders, daring the Zelari to strike. Inside the palace, the nobles grew restless. Whispers turned into arguments, arguments into threats. Elias kept his eyes and ears open. He saw the subtle signals between generals, the secret meetings late at night, the way guards were moved without reason. The conspiracy was real, and it was growing stronger. One evening, as he stood by the balcony overlooking the city, the queen joined him. The towers of Zalar Prime stretched into the sky, glowing with red light. "They mock me," she said quietly. "They say I am blinded by a human, that I have lost my strength." Elias looked at her. "They fear you, not me. You've led them too long. You've won too many wars. Now they look for any excuse to bring you down." She turned her gaze on him. "And you? Do you fear me?" Elias hesitated, then shook his head. "No, I respect you." "That's different." The queen's lips curved into another faint smile. "Respect. Perhaps that is rarer than fear." They stood in silence for a moment, the city lights shining below. Then Elias spoke again, his voice low. "Your Majesty, when the time comes, you will have to decide who you trust. But know this, I will not run. Not from the Crovar. Not from your enemies. Not from you." Her violet eyes softened just slightly. "You are a strange human, Elias Ward." That night, as Elias returned to his quarters, he knew the storm was coming. War outside, betrayal inside, and he was standing in the middle of it all. But he had made his choice. He would protect her even if it meant sacrificing himself, because somehow in the middle of politics and war, the queen's gaze had become more than duty to him. It had become personal. The palace of Zalar Prime was silent at first, almost eerily so. But that calm was only the eye of a storm. At dawn, alarms sounded. Red lights flashed across the halls. The Crovar fleets had moved, striking Zalari border worlds. At the same time, rebellion erupted inside the palace itself. The very generals who had whispered betrayal were now making their move. Commander Elias Ward stood in the strategy room, maps projected around him. He could see the Crovar fleets advancing, symbols glowing in red. Soldiers rushed past, shouting orders, their faces tense with fear. The queen entered, her armor gleaming in the flashing lights. Her violet eyes were hard and determined, but Elias could see the strain beneath her calm. "They have come," she said. "And so have traitors." Elias's heart sank. The conspiracy had finally become action. The first attack came from inside. Soldiers loyal to the rebellious general stormed the halls, cutting off communication and blocking exits. The queen's loyal guards fought back, but the palace was designed for defense, not open combat. "Human," the queen said, her voice commanding. "Stand with me. Now we see if your people's stories of bravery are true." Elias nodded, gripping the staff he had kept since his first challenge. He had trained in basic combat, but nothing prepared him for fighting against warriors bred for war. They moved through the halls together. The queen struck with precise, deadly force, cutting down any who dared to harm her. Elias used speed and cunning. He ducked, dodged, and used the environment, sliding panels, falling banners, even the heavy chandeliers, to disarm and trip attackers. The conspirators sneered. "A human? In the middle of a palace fight? He will die before he reaches her." But Elias surprised them again and again. He was fast, unpredictable, and clever in ways the alien soldiers had not prepared for. Outside the walls, while the palace erupted in chaos, the Crovar fleets began bombarding the city. Explosions shook the walls and fires began to spread through the lower districts. Elias ran alongside the queen to the command center. "We need a plan," he shouted over the roar of fire and alarms. The queen glared at him. "We must hold the palace first. If the enemy takes it, the rebellion succeeds and the empire falls." Elias thought quickly. "Then we don't fight them head on. We use the palace itself. Traps, corridors, choke points. We make every step they take costly. The palace becomes a weapon." The queen raised an eyebrow. "You are strange, human. Most of your kind run from danger." "I run when it makes sense," Elias replied. "I fight when it matters." "And right now it matters," the queen allowed it. Together they led small squads of loyal soldiers, setting traps in hallways, pushing debris to block corridors, and using hidden passages. Every move was unpredictable to the enemy, every counter a surprise. The palace itself became a battlefield. Generals who had believed in their plan were caught off guard. The human moved through danger with courage and ingenuity, striking when the enemy least expected it. Loyalty proved hours passed. The palace shook under bombardment. Fire spread in some wings and alarms blared endlessly. Yet Elias stayed by the queen's side. At one point, a group of rebel soldiers cornered the queen in the throne room. Elias charged through, throwing himself into the fight. He knocked 2 of them down with precise hits, grabbed a third by the arm, and threw him out of the chamber. The queen's eyes softened for a moment. "You are brave," she said, almost in admiration. "And stubborn," Elias replied with a small smile. She allowed herself a faint laugh, then turned serious again. "We must push forward. The palace cannot fall." Together they cleared the final corridors leading to the main gate. Loyal soldiers rallied, inspired by their courage. The conspirators realized that the human was not just surviving, he was changing the battle. Turning the tide as they reached the main courtyard, the Crovar forces had landed outside. Massive war machines, hundreds of alien soldiers, and strange flying drones filled the space. Most of the Zalari army had been scattered by earlier attacks. Elias looked at the queen. "We can't hold them here with raw strength, but we can make them pay for every step. Lead them into the traps we set in the lower passages. Hit their supply lines. Take their fuel," the queen nodded. "We will fight smart, not just with swords but with minds. You are learning quickly, human." Using the palace corridors, hidden passages, and explosive traps, they turned the invading army into a confused, scattered force. The human ingenuity combined with Zalari strength created chaos for the Crovar. Drones fell into pits, soldiers tripped over barricades, and machines were disabled by clever sabotage. The tide began to turn. Loyal soldiers rallied behind the queen and Elias. The conspirators among the generals were trapped or fled. One by one, the palace halls were reclaimed. The queen's realization. After the fighting, the queen stood on the palace balcony overlooking the battlefield. The Crovar fleets were still present, but the palace had not fallen. Loyal forces were regrouping, and the traitorous generals had been neutralized or captured. She turned to Elias, her violet eyes intense. "You did not just survive," she said. "You fought, you planned, you led, and you stayed by my side when others abandoned me." Elias bowed slightly. I did what I must, Your Majesty. You defended me before. It is only right I defend you now. Her lips curved into a faint, genuine smile. You are remarkable, human. My people doubted you. I doubted nothing. Yet even I am surprised. The Queen's advisors and soldiers began murmuring among themselves. Whispers of admiration for the human spread like wildfire. The impossible bond between human and Queen had now been proven on the battlefield. Elias felt exhaustion washing over him, but also pride. He had faced enemies both inside and outside the palace. He had risked himself, and together they had survived. A moment of quiet later, when the palace was secured, the Queen summoned Elias to the throne room. The city outside still burned in places, but the immediate danger had passed. You are not like other humans, she said quietly, standing before him. You are stronger than many Zalari I know. Elias shook his head, tired but resolute. I only do what is necessary, Your Majesty, and I do not abandon those who trust me. Her eyes softened. Then perhaps there is more to your kind than the galaxy believes. He felt a strange warmth in her gaze. It was no longer just curiosity or strategy. It was trust, admiration, maybe even something more. The court had seen the human survive when all thought he would fall. The Queen had seen him fight when all thought he would run. And now, after the storm, both knew that the bond formed between them was stronger than any doubt, stronger than any empire, and stronger than fear. The galaxy watched silently as the Krovar fleet hovered near Zalar Prime. Hundreds of massive ships blocked the stars, their red lights glinting like the eyes of predators. The Zalari Empire had survived the Palace Rebellion, but the threat of the Krovar remained enormous. Commander Elias Ward stood on the bridge of a Zalari command ship, staring at the enemy formations. Beside him, the Queen observed with calm determination, though Elias could sense the tension behind her composed exterior. The Krovar think we are weakened, she said, her violet eyes scanning the stars. They expect hesitation, confusion, and fear. Elias shook his head. Then they will be disappointed. They underestimate us, and that's when we strike. The Queen's lips curved slightly. You speak like a general, human. I learned from watching your empire survive, Elias replied. Now let's show the galaxy how humans fight. The battle begins. The Zalari fleet advanced cautiously, led by the Queen herself. Elias had advised her to split the human ships into smaller, unpredictable squads. While the Krovar expected a direct assault, humans moved like shadows, striking supply ships, disabling weapon systems and cutting off retreat paths. Explosions lit the void as Krovar cruisers were forced to maneuver frantically. The Zalari, disciplined as ever, took advantage of the chaos. Together, humans and Zalari created a deadly synergy, strength and strategy combined. Elias directed his small fleet through tight asteroid fields, using gravity wells and debris as cover. His tactics were unconventional for the Zalari, but they worked. Krovar ships crashed or were trapped in gravitational rifts. The Queen watched with fascination. Your ideas are dangerous. And brilliant, she said. Dangerous works well when they aren't expecting it, Elias replied, turning the tide hours past in a blur of laser fire and explosions. The Krovar grew frustrated as their strongest ships were disabled one by one. Their commanders, confident at first, now shouted orders in panic. Elias led a daring strike toward the Krovar flagship. With the Queen in his fleet, they struck simultaneously from two angles, confusing the enemy. The flagship was crippled, its weapons offline, and its crew thrown into disarray. Now, Elias shouted. Board their ship. Take control. Zalari warriors, coordinated by the Queen, charged with human squads. They moved swiftly and decisively. Elias found himself fighting alongside the Queen, protecting her flank, and using his ingenuity to trap enemy soldiers. It was chaos, but it worked. The Krovar flagship fell and the remaining fleet retreated in disarray. Humanity and Zalari had achieved what no one expected. A Queen's declaration. With the battle won, the Queen addressed her people in the Grand Hall. The nobles and generals had gathered, eyes wide with shock and awe. You have witnessed courage, she began, her voice carrying across the chamber. You have seen loyalty. You have seen ingenuity. And you have seen humanity at its finest. Whispers spread through the hall. Many could not believe the Queen was speaking so openly of a human's role in the battle. Elias stood quietly, bowing his head respectfully. He felt the weight of every gaze upon him. "I have faced threats from outside and within," the Queen continued. "I have faced betrayal. And yet one human stood by me, not because he had to, not because he was commanded, but because he chose to. That human is Commander Elias Ward of Earth." The hall erupted in murmurs, then applause. Some generals bowed, some nodded, and some simply stared in disbelief. The impossible had happened. A human had become a symbol of courage in the heart of the Zalari Empire. Then the Queen's violet eyes met Elias's directly. "And now, a personal question. One I ask not as your queen, but as one who sees your heart. Human, are you single?" The chamber went silent once more. Thousands of eyes focused on him. Elias felt the weight of history pressing down, but also a warmth that had grown over the past weeks. He stepped forward, head high, and smiled. "Yes, Your Majesty," he said. "And if you ask, I would be honored to stand with you, not just as an ally, but as someone who cares for you deeply." A soft murmur of astonishment spread through the hall. The Queen's lips curved into a radiant smile, a rare expression full of warmth and pride. "You are bold," she said, voice soft but commanding, "and brave. Then so be it. Let it be known across the empire. The Queen has chosen a human." The hall erupted, not in shock this time, but in approval. The generals and nobles could not deny the results of the battle, nor the strength of the human who had fought beside their queen. Humanity had earned a place among the stars, and a unique bond had formed that no one could ignore. A new alliance in the days that followed. Elias and the Queen worked together to rebuild the Empire's defenses and forge new alliances. The Crovar had been pushed back, and the traitorous generals were imprisoned. Humans, once considered weak and insignificant, were now respected for their courage and ingenuity. Across the galaxy, news spread of the human who had fought beside the greatest Zalari queen and survived. Not only survived, but thrived. Elias spent his days learning more about the Zalari, their culture and their ways of war. And each day the bond between him and the Queen grew stronger, built on trust, admiration, and mutual respect. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. The human spirit, unpredictable and stubborn, standing shoulder to shoulder with the greatest warriors of a mighty empire. The future awaits one evening. Elias stood with the Queen on the balcony overlooking Zalar Prime. The city glowed in the twilight, a testament to their victory and resilience. "You have changed history," the Queen said softly, "not just for humanity, but for the Empire." Elias looked at her, feeling a mixture of pride and awe. "We did it together, Your Majesty. Humanity learned, but so did I, from you, from your people. We were stronger together." The Queen's eyes softened. "And together we will face whatever the galaxy sends next." "You have proven yourself, human, in ways that no one expected." He bowed slightly. "Then let us face it side by side. For the first time in the history of two species, a human and a Zalari queen had formed a bond that was more than duty, more than alliance. It was a partnership that would shape the future of the galaxy." As they stood there, watching the stars above, the galaxy seemed smaller, brighter, and full of possibility. The Queen had chosen him. Humanity had earned its place, and together they would face the cosmos with courage, cunning, and an unbreakable bond.